Hello, welcome back to the channel. If you are highly sensitive, you may be familiar with experiences like this. Picking up subtle sounds others miss, sensing a faint tension or tenderness in the air, or even seeing something others can't see. This isn't simply auditory or visual hallucination. Often, spirits exist in a form of energy, and highly sensitive persons are more likely to perceive that energy. What I'm about to tell you is my personal experience.
Back then, I was a young woman with short hair, living with my husband in the suburbs of Beijing. One day, the landlord told us he wasn't renting it out anymore, so we had to move. Luckily, we found another place quickly, just across the street. We booked a moving company for the weekend, but since it was so close, I decided to carry some lighter personal stuff myself, like my diplomas and private belongings. My husband was away on business trips all the time, so I had to handle everything about the move on my own. To be honest, I was terrified about moving across that street. Walking across it by myself was barely manageable, but carrying bags back and forth made me extremely nervous. The reason is, people said that road was cursed. Almost every day there were accidents. It wasn't even a busy road. Both sides were residential neighborhoods. There was a traffic light between the two communities, less than 300 meters from another light to the south. In theory, drivers should have slowed down, but in reality, many didn't. Some sped up, and drivers unfamiliar with the area often ran the red light because they couldn't stop in time. Back then, there were no cameras, and police rarely patrolled, so people just got away with it. Pedestrians were the unlucky ones. You know how people usually push the button at a crosswalk, wait for the light to turn green, and then just walk across, assuming it's safe. On this road, that assumption could kill you. I once saw a tragedy myself. A woman was pushing her bicycle across the zebra crossing when a red car ran the light and hit her. The driver panicked, sped off for about 500 meters, but the bike was stuck under the car, so he had to stop. Angry bystanders surrounded the car and dragged him out. He was drunk, wearing slippers, with a heavy accent, not even local.
You think this street looks normal? Wait till you hear what happened after I moved in.
Now, about the apartment my husband and I rented. It was creepy. The building was less than 10 meters away from that same cursed traffic light. Sometimes, I even wondered if the souls of those accident victims were still wandering around inside. Let's talk about the apartment. Here's one thing that happened after I moved in. I am a female journalist, and one morning I couldn't find my recording pen, which I needed for an interview. I searched everywhere, feeling desperate, when suddenly I heard a loud static noise, like a radio signal, coming from under the sofa. I lifted the sofa cover, and there it was, my recording pen. The strange thing, it had turned on by itself. Normally, it was always off. It felt like it was deliberately making noise to let me know where it was. In Chinese culture, people say when a ghost passes by, you hear a sound like that. But this was in broad daylight. It was cloudy, cold, no sun. As I picked up the recorder, I thought to myself, I should probably turn on the heater. And just as that thought crossed my mind, something even weirder happened. The air conditioner on the wall suddenly switched on by itself. Everyone knows you have to point the remote directly at the AC unit to turn it on. But the remote was lying on the table, and between the remote and the AC was a huge old-style TV, the kind with a big back, totally blocking the signal. I was alone in the room, holding the recorder, staring in shock at the AC running by itself, as if it had read my mind.
Let's rewind to moving day and see what went on.
This is the day of the move. That morning at 8 a.m., I nervously carried a package toward the traffic light. What I saw shocked me. There were soldiers standing guard on both sides of the crosswalk, 8 in total, 4 on each side. They wore old-style military uniforms, the kind I'd only ever seen in movies. Because the Chinese military had already changed uniforms several times since then. These looked like uniforms from decades ago. Each soldier stood straight with a rifle and bayonet. It was a sight I had never seen in peacetime on a regular street. The road wasn't wide, so I could clearly see one soldier on the opposite side smile at me, as if to say, "Don't worry, we're here to protect you. You'll be fine crossing." So I made it across safely with my first load. When I came back with the second package, there were fewer soldiers, only 3 on each side. On my third trip, there were 2 on each side. And on my final trip, just 1 on each side. By the time I had finished moving all my personal items, they had completely disappeared. The whole thing lasted over an hour.
Since then, I never saw those soldiers again. Some might say it was my imagination and stress, but the details were too vivid to dismiss. The old uniforms, the rifles, even the young face of the soldier who smiled at me. What unsettled me most was how their appearances matched up perfectly with the number of trips I made, moving back and forth. I never understood whether they were hallucinations or guardians from some other realm. But I knew that without them, I might not have had the courage to even start moving. Perhaps that cursed road was not just a shadow of death, but also concealed unseen protectors from another dimension. Even today, whenever I record that experiences, a thought comes to mind. Sometimes the guardians of the fate do not come from this world.